So we are discussing about the types of induction motors. In fact, we started with slip ring or wound rotor type induction motor, where both stator and rotor windings houses balanced three-phase distributed winding, and rotor terminals can be accessed with the help of slip ring and brushes. Now there is another popular type of induction motor which is very simple to construct, and that is called squirrel cage induction motor. And the rotor, basically, as I told you, it consists of several bars placed in the rotor slots, all along the rotor periphery. So there are several rotor conductors will be there. And these bars are slightly extended beyond this one, each bar, and then these bars are shorted at both the sides with the help of what is known as end rings. All the terminals of each bar, they are shorted at both the ends. So these are called end rings. End rings. Now, if you imagine that the magnetic material of the rotor is removed and only the conductors are present, then it will look like a cage. You just imagine that there is no magnetic material and slots, and this structure remains. Then it will resemble like a cage. So that's why the name cage induction motor. So at both the ends of these conductors, all the conductors are shorted at both the ends. So no question of having any rotor terminals available, because what you will do with the rotor terminals? There is no meaning, because all the rotor terminals are shorted at both the ends. So no rotor terminals are available for such machines. No rotor terminals. Why no rotor terminals are available? Okay, any problem or what?
So why is the squirrel?
I mean, it looks like a squirrel cage. Perhaps squirrels were kept in those cages. Maybe like that. I'm not sure, but must be that, because squirrels may be kept in this texture. Anyway, let us. That is the lighter part of it. You think about it. Okay. So it looks like a cage. That is the essential thing. And both the ends are shorted by end rings. Now the question is, and the stator winding is balanced three-phase winding. Balanced three-phase winding. As usual. Now the question is how to how to understand the operation of such machines. To understand that, what I will do is this. You imagine that one of the end rings is removed initially. Then it will look like this one. That is, on one side there is an end ring shorted, and all the other terminals are free. That is, other end ring I have simply removed. So it will look like this one now. The other side free terminals, and here it is of course shorted. Okay, then if the three-phase winding is excited by the balanced three-phase voltage source, and there will be a rotating magnetic field produced which will move in a particular direction, we know. Say, suppose in this direction with synchronous speed ns, stator field moves. Then in each of these conductors, the other side of which is not opened, there will be induced voltage in each conductor. That is, between these 2 points, there will be induced voltage, VLV. There will be induced voltage in this conductor. All the conductors will have induced voltage across them. And these voltages, magnitudes will be equal. RMS value of the magnitudes of the voltages will be equal. But they will be displaced in time phase by the slot angle, electrical slot angle, slot pitch angle. That is between two consecutive slots, whatever is the angle. That is, if you look from this end, it can be drawn like this. There are several conductors, and this side they are all shorted, and on the other side into the paper they are free, and I am considering the voltage induced in this conductor like this, and there is a field produced by stator which moves in a particular direction. So there will be induced voltage. Now let us draw the voltage phasors of each conductor. Suppose this is conductor 1 in the rotor, this is conductor 2, 3, like that. So suppose this is the voltage of conductor 1. Conductor 2 voltage will be where? It will be having same magnitude but displaced by this angle. Conductor 3 once again is not, it will be like this. So depending upon the number of conductors present, there will be induced voltage phasors on each of the rotor conductors, and they will be displaced by equal angles. All the angles are equal. So what you get? You get a balanced polyphase supply in the rotor, each conductor. In extreme case, extreme case means suppose in the sense, suppose if there were only 3 conductors placed like this in the rotor, and these angles are 120 degree, you would have got perhaps a balanced 3-phase voltage. Why perhaps? You will get a balanced 3-phase voltage for 2-pole configuration. So in the rotor, depending upon the number of conductors present, you will get a balanced polyphase voltage. And if these ends are not connected, then there will be no current in the rotor conductor and machine will not run. But you now imagine that the second end ring I have closed. I have put now the second end ring here. That is what exactly the machine rotor looks like. Then what will happen? This polyphase voltage is shorted. Therefore, each phase will deliver currents to the external short-circuited load, the value of which will be limited by the internal impedance of the conductors, etc., resistance and leakage reactance, whatever it is. Okay. So what I mean to say, that you imagine the machine is stationary condition with both ends shorted. You have switched on the 3-phase supply to the stator. A rotating field has resulted. Then I know in each conductor there is voltage induced, and which, if you see all the voltages you consider, it will be a balanced polyphase voltage induced, and that is loaded by a short circuit like that. Therefore, there will be a balanced polyphase current flowing through each of the conductors. It may not be 3-phase. It may be 12-phase, 16-phase, depending upon the number of slots present. But what will be the result of that? Will machine produce a torque? It can. You see, because it is a balanced polyphase current. You know that any balanced polyphase currents distributed in space, it need not be only 3-phase. It may be a 2-phase winding carrying balanced 2-phase current. It will produce a rotating field. 3-phase, it will produce 4-phase, 6-phase, 12-phase. So the rotating field will result, which will be produced by rotor, and rotating field will be produced just like as if a balanced 3-phase winding has produced a rotating field. Therefore, the rotor too will produce a rotating field. So far stator is concerned, stator is not bothered who has produced that rotating field. Is it a 3-phase winding which has produced the rotating field, or a 4-phase winding? It knows only that if somebody tries to upset the flux produced in the air gap, I must draw extra current to counter that flux in order to keep my house in order. That is, that EMF equation in the stator should be satisfied like that. See, so far as stator is concerned, it does not matter whether this rotating field produced by the rotor has been produced by a balanced three-phase winding or balanced six-phase winding or balanced any phase winding, polyphase winding. It only knows, that is, stator may think that some equivalent three-phase winding in the rotor has produced that rotating field. So it will react and draw additional current to counter that MMF and keep the machine running. So what I mean to say, that this kind of rotor structure will produce a torque, and stator will also draw additional current if that machine is loaded like that, and it will pick up speed in the same direction as that of the stator like that. So this thing you should keep in mind. Okay. See, there are certain advantages of this kind of rotor. One advantage is that the construction of such rotors are very simple. For that you don't require any skilled winder. As you know, to wind a three-phase winding like that, your winder must be skilled. He must know in which slot one conductor is placed and in which other number of slot the return of that coil must be there. So one must be very much conversant with those things, and winding in a particular sequence, taking out the terminals, then he has to connect slip ring brushes to take out the voltage. Those things are not there. So maintenance problem in the rotor is also very reduced. In fact, no maintenance is required in the rotor side. But in slip ring induction motor, maintenance will be required, because slip ring is there, brush is there. Sometimes that brush may, because of wear and tear, it will not make contact with the slip ring. There will be problems. You have to replace that brushes. Are you getting? But here the structure of the rotor is very robust. No maintenance practically required in the, so far as rotor side is concerned. Practically no maintenance. However, it is, what is the disadvantage? If you just, one point you will be able to tell me. Suppose you compare it with a slip ring induction motor. Here no rotor terminals are available. So what you will be losing? That is starting torque, you have nothing to do, because you cannot insert external resistance in the rotor to improve the starting torque. Whatever is the starting torque dictated by the equivalent resistance of this rotor, that is fixed. Your hands are tied. You cannot play with starting torque, changing the torque slip characteristics with ease as you did in case of a slip ring induction motor. It has got, of course, another advantage that I will try to tell. That is also important. So, since in the absence of rotor terminals, you cannot play with rotor resistance change, etc. Parameters of rotor cannot be changed. But one important advantage of this kind of machine, apart from its, it is very robust, is that the rotor, a cage rotor, you write, a cage rotor can adjust to any number of poles. I will elaborate this statement. What do I mean by this? You tell me that in any machine, say single phase, AC, synchronous, whatever it is, the number of poles produced by stator and rotor must be same. Otherwise, no torque will be produced. Steady torque cannot be produced. Number of poles should be same. Now, suppose you have got a cage rotor, which henceforth I will draw symbolically like this, and put a short circuited ring along these conductors. It is a cage rotor. Now you have stator winding. What I mean to say, suppose this balanced three-phase winding which is placed on the stator is wound for 2 poles. You give supply at 50 hertz. Tell me quickly at what speed machine will be running? Very close to 3000 rpm. Below it 3000 rpm. Now what do? You remove these stator windings from the slots of the stator and wind that stator winding with now 4 pole. Are you getting? Stator now you replace. Stator is replaced by another windings, 3-phase balanced winding, which produces 4 number of poles. But rotor, same rotor you keep. Yes, you keep same rotor. Rotor you don't touch. Only stator windings you remove. It was wound for 2 pole connections, 2 pole way. Now you replace that one by such that it produces 4 poles. You give supply 50 hertz. Now you will find now the machine is running at 1500 rpm. So far as the end result is very close to 1500 rpm. In fact, less than equal to very close to 1500 rpm. Now see, while you wind a machine, as I told you, you must know for how many poles you are winding that. Then only you can fix up what will be the coil span in terms of mechanical angle. Is not? Say 2-pole machine, coil ends should be diametrically opposite. 4-pole machine in mechanical degree, the coil span should be 90 degree mechanical, like that. Although electrically 180 degree. But here, okay, stator you have changed, but rotor you have not changed anything. But why it should then rotate? So this statement tells that one. Why it is so, I will try to explain. But this statement means this one. You imagine stator is replaced by a 6-pole connection, winding. You will find it is now running at 1000 rpm. But that will not be the case, what I mean to say, in case of a slip ring induction motor. Suppose you have got a stator wound by 4 pole and rotor is also wound like stator, taking each turn. It has got a start and finish and slip ring terminals are available. So this rotor must be wound for how many poles? Must be 4 poles. And once you do that, it is fixed. Now what I mean that in this case, if you give supply, at what RPM it will run? 1500 RPM, close to that it will run. Now in this case, if you replace the stator by 6-pole winding, suppose it produces 6 pole, and rotor you keep what it was, that is it was 4 poles, then you will find machine is not producing any torque. So this distinction I want to bring out. Rotor you don't change here. Stator change number of poles the way you like. You will find rotor automatically adjusts to the new number of poles. Why it is so? It is because of the fact, in case of a wound machine, wound rotor machine, or for any 3-phase winding, this way if you wind, every coil has got their separate identity. Means that, if you remember our earlier discussion on windings, this is suppose one winding you place, another winding is placed here, and this coil has got its own start and finish. That way it is made. But in case of cage induction motor, if you consider this conductor, you really do not know which one is its return, because both ends they are shorted like that. But it can be understood in this way. You suppose consider this cage rotor. Hmm. Cage rotor, you suppose cut it and spread it, so that I will draw like this, cage induction motor rotors. Only aluminum bars are there or copper bars are there. Suppose it is a two-pole machine we have drawn. So half of the conductors will be under the influence of the north pole and half will be under the influence of the south pole. Suppose this conductor you consider, it is under the center of north pole, this is suppose south pole. There will be a conductor available which will be just under the peak of south pole. So maximum induced voltage will be there, maximum current will be flowing here and there. So if you look this from the top, it will be somewhat like this. These are the conductors. If you look from the top, these are the conductors. Of equal lengths, all the conductors are. And here is another conductor. Here is another conductor. Like that it will be there. And on both sides they are connected. That is the top view of this one. This is the cage one. You spread it, it will look like this. Now what I mean to say, in this conductor some maximum current will be flowing, suppose in this direction. Then its counter conductor, whatever current it takes, it will be like this. And current can go like this. Consider this conductor. Here there will be also induced current along the same direction because it is under the influence of the north pole. But its magnitude will be somewhat less. B value is less. And its corresponding return will be like this. So this is suppose under two pole. Now suppose the same rotor, so you find there is a return conductor, one can find out for a start conductor on the other side. Now the same thing, if you consider it is under four pole, that is suppose two poles here will be produced and two poles there will be produced. Then once again this and this can make a pair. This is under the influence, this two pole is not there now. Suppose this same cage rotor is subjected to a four pole thing. Then also I can find out for this conductor there will be a return conductor here if there are large number of bars are present, rotor bars are present. Therefore the machine will be able to adjust to that new situation when you have changed the stator number of poles, which is not possible in case of a wound rotor induction motor. Why? Because in case of wound rotor induction motor, suppose a two pole configuration you take. Suppose this is under north pole, this is south pole. And in wound rotor also there will be conductors placed here, no doubt. But all of them are not shorted, this side or that side, they are not shorted. Suppose this is one conductor, its return will be now placed under the center of the south pole. Suppose this is one dashed, that will be there. And when current flows through it, it will be returning, that is okay. And this is the two pole thing, because rotor I have wound for how many poles? Two pole, because this angle is 180 degree electrical. Okay, suppose two pole thing. Now rotor I have not touched. What I have done is stator number of poles I have increased to 4 poles, so that there will be now 2 poles produced by this one and 2 poles produced by this one. Consider this conductor X. This rotor has been wound for 2 poles. Where will be its return? Its return will be here. which is fixed and joined by at the back. But when you want to induce voltage by a 4-pole configuration, by changing the stator winding, etc., what will be the polarity of this is under north pole and this fellow is also under north pole maximum. And they are the two conductors which cannot produce any current right now. So rotor will fail to produce any torque. You can say this conductor and this conductor, they cannot make a pair, simply because this belongs to some other coil which has got a separate identity, start, beginning, which are connected in series and nicely brought out through slip ring and brushes like that. Therefore, in case of cage induction motor, the current distribution, this one will be a very large current, suppose under the center of the north pole. This will be slightly smaller. Here no current. The current distribution in the conductors will be somewhat like this. And these currents will flow through the end rings, like this one. This current will also flow through the end rings. This is how current path will be completed. Okay. Now, just this, of course, I tell what is called without doing any mathematics. We will not go into mathematics, just to tell you physically that a cage induction motor, first of all, can produce a rotating magnetic field. In the same way, a slip ring 3-phase rotor winding produced a rotating magnetic field. And if it can produce that, then by interacting with the stator poles, it can produce a torque much in the same way. That is one thing. And second thing is, a cage rotor, you just frame, manufacture, and then you place it under any number of poles produced by stator, it should give you torque, which is not possible for a slip ring induction motor. So, in some cases, this type of rotor structure is preferable, as we will see, as you can easily see. Suppose you want to have variable speed drive of the induction motor. Rotor winding cage. Stator winding you sometimes connect in 4-pole mode and 2-pole mode. Then it can have two speeds. See, 2-pole 3000 rpm, 4-pole 1500 rpm, like that. But anyway, we will come to that. But what I want to tell, that two types of induction motor, that is slip ring and cage induction motor, they have got their relative advantages, disadvantages. One thing is very clear, a slip ring or a cage induction motor will be very cheap, because for winding the rotor you don't require any skilled labor. It can be in fact manufactured in large numbers simply by die casting. That is, you pour molten metal into the slots and get it solidified, and your rotor is constructed. In case of slip ring induction motor, take wires, multi-turn winding, and do it nicely like that. And cage induction motor rotor do not require practically any attention so far as maintenance is concerned. And on the top of it, it can adjust to any number of poles as dictated by the stator of the machine. Now, coming to the equivalent circuit of this induction motor. Okay, how to perceive the equivalent circuit? There is no trouble at all once this is understood, because of the fact the stator winding is a balanced 3-phase winding, per phase thing. Rotor produces a rotating field, that's all. Rotor produces a rotating field. And as I told you, stator is not bothered who has produced this rotating field. It draws additional current. Therefore, some equivalent resistance must be deferred per phase in stator. Are you getting or not? Suppose this FR, rotor FR has been produced. It may be produced by a balanced what is called wound rotor induction motor rotor, or it could as well be produced by a cage induction motor rotor. Now, so far as this strength is concerned and it is rotating, I can always imagine this to be some equivalent to slip ring induction motor. Although it is a polyphase supply which is shorted at the ends and produced a rotating magnetic field, how does it matter if I imagine that some equivalent three-phase balanced winding is present and the resistance of that equivalent winding R2 will be reflected in the stator by R2 dash. Are you getting? It really does not pose any problem. Therefore, we can invoke all the equivalent circuit parameters of that one. But the only thing we should remember that in the equivalent circuit of that parameter, that X2 dashed and R2 dashed we are writing, this R2 dash for example, may not be the bar resistance. It will be related to that. Some say 1 bar resistance will have some ohmic value. That may not be that R2 per phase reflected in the stator side. It will be related to that. That is no doubt. It will be related. But it does not really matter. Because after all, I will find out the parameters of the equivalent circuit by doing some suitable test from the stator side. And whatever parameters I will get there R2 dashed, I should imagine that as if there is a equivalent slip ring, three-phase winding is present. So far as the performance prediction of the induction motor is concerned, it really does not matter. Therefore, all the equivalent circuit of this one can be invoked here. So, all the relations that I did, that is torque is equal to K S alpha by S square plus alpha square, neglecting the stator impedance, or torque somewhat elaborate expression including the stator impedance, all these things will be valid. Let us not go how that R2 is related with bar resistance, because after all I will be doing some block rotor and no load test from the stator side and carry this out. Okay. Now, so this is there. Now, in which way I will go after this, that equivalent circuits are there. Okay, for any motor, 3 things are important. One should study. One is the starting, another is the speed control of that machine, and braking of machine. Generally, these 3 topics will be covering for all the machines, motors which are running as motor. See, starting, speed control and braking. That I will do. But before that, I will tell you one thing about starting of induction motor. This you just first listen. See, to understand what happens at starting, say during starting, with say full voltage. Of course, this I am not writing now, I am studying or telling you about starting in general, but just to understand what is happening from physical concept. See, during starting, be it cage induction motor or slip ring, whatever it is, if you give full supply voltage when the machine was stationary, and as you know, it will pick up speed like that. Tell me, during starting, current drawn will be more compared to when it will be running? It will be more during starting. Why? No back EMF is okay. Why no back EMF? Now, see, physically you first tell. See, in the equivalent circuit you can tell. In the equivalent circuit, what is happening? This is X2 dashed and this is R2 dashed by S, this resistance. So, during starting, what is the impedance? It is R2 dashed plus JX2 dashed. S is 1. Is not? And during running, when the machine is running with some slip, what is happening to slip value? It is decreasing. Therefore, current drawn from the supply will gradually decrease. But this is from the equivalent circuit, one can explain. But nonetheless, tell me physically. See, during starting, what is happening? Rotor induced voltage will be maximum, is not? Rotor induced voltage will be maximum, the standstill induced voltage, rotor side. And there will be rotor current, large rotor current. And stator current at that time drawn will be also large, because it will be that actual rotor current I2 by that turns ratio A. Now machine picks up speed. The induced voltage in the rotor circuit decreases, because relative speed between the stator field and rotor decreases. Induced voltage gradually decreases, rotor current decreases, hence stator current too will decrease. Is not like that, it continues. Apart from that, another thing one should notice, that during starting, comment on power factor of the machine during starting and 2 during running condition. What is your observation? During starting, power factor will be poorer, lower, or that is poorer. It is called low power factor, means it is poor, is not? You would like to have power factor to be high, so that whatever kVA is drawn is utilized, is not? Otherwise you will be drawing large current and doing little bit of wattage thing. So during starting, lower or poor power factor. But during running, power factor will improve, because this resistive part will be high. Power factor will improve. Okay. This is one thing I would like to tell. And second thing, I would like to tell another important thing, that how to measure the slip in a, say, slip ring induction motor. Slip. I will tell you a very simple technique first. That is, you answer me. Suppose you have a slip ring induction motor. What you do, you short the terminals, no? You connect an ammeter, a zero-centered DC meter you connect. A zero-centered DC meter you connect. Give supply. Let machine come to the normal speed. A zero-centered DC ammeter you connect while shorting. What will be the ammeter reading? It will read or not read? It is generally, because AC thing will be there, so it is not expected to read. But you will find when the machine is running, it is oscillating about its mean zero position. And the oscillations is because of what? What is the frequency of the rotor current? How it is related with the supply frequency? SF. During starting condition, frequency is 50 Hertz. during running condition, what is the order of the frequency of the rotor current? Say full load condition, 5% slip you assume, 0.05 into 50, 2.5 hertz. Is not? About 2 hertz, 2.5 hertz, 3 hertz, that will be the frequency of the rotor current. This low frequency thing will be followed by the pointer of the DC meter, because its inertia otherwise prevents it to show any deflection at 50 hertz. Are you getting? Low frequency, slowly it is increasing, decreasing. Your pointer will be able to follow that. But large frequency, it cannot, its inertia will prevent it. That is, every second, 50 times you are telling the pointer to go to right, and another 50 times you are telling to go to left, and because of its inertia, it will not, it cannot move this way or that way. But when the frequency is low, your inertia will be able to follow that. Are you getting? So one of the very accurate method of measuring slip is to connect ammeter in the rotor circuit, which is a zero-centered DC meter. Then what you will do exactly? Suppose this pointer oscillates. This oscillation is totally actually the electrical current frequency oscillation. Therefore, you count how many times it is oscillating, full cycles you count. You count, while counting you should do like this. It goes, once again comes, count 1. That is 1. So 2, like that you count in a given time. Calculate per second how many complete cycle, and that will be your FR. F is supply frequency known, therefore S can be calculated. Okay. But this you cannot adopt can you adopt this method for a cage induction motor? Certainly not, because cage nothing is available. Rotor bars I cannot break and put an ammeter there. It is fixed and there. So, how to measure then this slip of an induction motor? One method you tell, you measure NR with a tachometer. NR you measure, NS you measure. NS minus NR by NS you do. But as you must have faced in the laboratory, that measurement with a tachometer is not very correct, particularly because of this fact that synchronous speed is very close to 1500. Rotor speed too will be very close to 1500, suppose say 1440 RPM. Really it is very difficult to distinguish between these two. And with a normal tachometer available in the lab, the list count, whatever it is you call. And also we know that the variation of slip from no load to full load will vary over a small range, 0 to 5% only, slip variation. Therefore, a slight mistake here will be amplified. The accurate measurement of slip is very difficult. You will find often with a tachometer measurement and calculating slip is becoming negative. Sometimes it may happen. But it is not the fault of the motor. Machine is running below synchronous speed. At that time you should check two things. One is what is the existing supply frequency now. That 50 Hz is not a very unique and is maintained all the time. Frequency may vary this way, that way. It may be 48 Hz or it may be 51 Hz. In a certain range it varies generally. Therefore you should also note the supply existing frequency and also this one. But tachometer, as I told you, has some problem. Then how to measure more accurately the slip of an induction motor? That is done with the help of what is known as stroboscopic method. That is to measure NS minus NR more accurately. You have to do it like that. More accurately you have to measure NS minus NR. Today I will just tell you only the concept. It is done like this. Stroboscopic method means that suppose you attach to the shaft of the machine a disc. Attach a disc. Suppose it is a two-pole machine, two-pole machine, and on the disc you have two pointers, two patterns you mark. Are you getting? It is attached to the disc. Some two patterns you mark. Okay. And this is attached to the shaft. The machine will be running at what speed? Very close to 3000 rpm. Two-pole machine, suppose P equal to 2 poles. Machine will be running very close to 3000 rpm. Now what you do is this. You take a source of light which will flash, not continuously on. It will go on flashing. And at a certain frequency, it will flash at say supply frequency, whatever is present at that frequency it will flash. That every second some 50 times it will flash. Okay. Suppose the time interval between two flashes is say 20 milliseconds, suppose 20 milliseconds. And this pattern you call it 1 and 2. To make a complete rotation, how much time will elapse if it runs at 3000 rpm? 20 milliseconds will require straight. And if the time interval between two consecutive flashes is also 20 milliseconds, what you will note? This pattern will appear to remain stationary. Flash, blank. Another flash comes, then one is already one. So the pattern will appear to be stationary. And if it is now running at an RPM slightly less than 3000 RPM, what will be after 20 milliseconds, where this pattern 1 will be? It will be slightly lagging here, not reached to that point. Anyway, I will continue tomorrow, next class with this one.